Hi, and welcome to a journey back to you. So, I've been thinking of doing something like this for a very long time, but I always made excuses, and that stopped me. But now I decided that perfection aside, I'm going to get this done. So, I hope my openness, honesty, and my words from the heart resonates with you. I'm so excited about this space where I get to share the experiences that have shaped my life. And if something I share helps even one person feel less alone or live a little more, I'm overjoyed. This podcast was born from a place I know many of you have visited. That quiet, slightly uncomfortable feeling that your life looks fine from the outside, but something on the inside has become still, heavy, or lost. Like the volume got turned down and you can't quite remember how to turn it back up again. So I'm Asha, I'm 58 years old. I'm a single mom to twin daughters who are now grown. I'm also the founder of AgePure, a natural skincare line I created from my kitchen, and someone who spent decades being very, very good at keeping everything together. But there came a time when I had to choose to meet life more consciously. This series of 10 episodes, shared with you one episode each week, is about reconnecting with yourself, finding your rhythm again, and learning to move through life without forcing it. So if you're here because you're tired, the kind that means that you've been carrying too much for too long, you're exactly in the right place. So let's begin. For most of my life, I've been busy. Busy working, busy caring, creating, holding things together. And if I'm completely honest, busy controlling my life. I spent many years in IT, a world that valued certainty, logic, structure, and delivery. You were expected to know, decide, fix, manage outcomes. Control wasn't just encouraged, it was rewarded. That world gave me security, status, and a very well-paying management position. I was also a single mom to twin daughters. And that matters because when you're responsible for others' lives, security isn't optional. You don't leap without checking the ground first. You don't take risks casually. You tell yourself you'll listen to your heart later when things feel safer. I built a life on being reliable, predictable, and in control. From the outside, it looked like success, and in many ways it was. But somewhere along the way, control stopped feeling like strength and started feeling like pressure. Because when everything in your life is built around managing outcomes, there's very little room left for feeling, for flow, for yourself. And that's when something started shifting inside of me. I remember it clearly. A perfectly ordinary Tuesday. The kind of morning that looks like every other morning on the surface. I got up, made my cup of tea, looked around at my organized life. Good job, stable income, girls doing well at school, and thought, I am so unhappy. I don't know how much longer I can do this. It was something that was building up in me slowly over time, but I just could not come face to face with it. But this morning, it was louder and more of an order in my head than a quiet suggestion. It was a clear knowing that something fundamental had shifted, and I could no longer pretend it hadn't. This was the first big transition I ever had to take, and it was leaving that security. Leaving IT, leaving that well-paying role without knowing what came next. I had no idea what I wanted to do. I only knew I could not stay where I was. I knew I had to take the risk. And it was a huge risk. There was struggle, pain, and uncertainty galore. There were moments when going back would have been easier, more logical, more socially acceptable. But deep down, I knew I could not go back. I had to move forward, not because it was easy and not because it was guaranteed, but because it was true to me. I wanted to touch people's lives differently. I wanted to matter in a way I could feel. And so I left. Without a plan, without another job lined up, without knowing what came next. Just knowing with every cell in my body that I could not stay where I was. It was terrifying, but without question the most freeing and honest thing I have ever done for myself. Many of us have had a version of that moment, that morning, that knowing, and we've talked ourselves out of listening to it. But here's the part I didn't understand at the time. Leaving my job didn't mean I had left control. That transition shaped everything that came after it. Life doesn't always give you a plan. Sometimes it gives you a pull. And if you ignore it, the discomfort grows. But if you listen, even while trembling, something begins to open. But habits don't disappear just because your life changes. I had left the structure. I had left the certainty, but I hadn't left the way I related to life. So I carried that same need to manage, to plan, to make things work into my other businesses, into natural health and wellness, entrepreneurship, into creating spaces for others to heal. I was always anticipating, still trying to make sure everything worked out the way it should. Even now I catch myself planning my day down to the minute, replaying conversations, predicting responses, trying to stay one step ahead. Sometimes it's subtle, like wanting the house to feel just right before I can relax. Sometimes it's louder, like worrying about a business decision or an outcome that hasn't even happened yet. I do this not because I'm incapable of letting go. I do it because control feels safe. Because somewhere along the way, probably quite early, I learned that if I managed enough, if I stayed organized, if I anticipated and prepared and planned, then nothing would fall apart. And for a long time that was true, or at least it felt true. But life has a way of teaching you things you need to learn, whether you're ready or not. And what life has taught me, slowly and repeatedly, is this. Control does not equal security. Forcing life never brings peace. And energy, your energy and my energy, does not flow when it's clenched. Think about your hands. If you clench them tightly, nothing can flow in or out. You're gripping, and when you're gripping, you're not receiving. You're not resting. You're not open. Forcing life is exactly like that. It exhausts you while making you feel like you're doing something. But doing isn't always the same as moving forward. Recovering yourself doesn't mean disappearing from life It doesn't mean withdrawing or giving up. It means returning gently to your own rhythm, listening to your inner voice, your inner intuition, instead of forcing, allowing instead of pushing, trusting instead of controlling. Your body is a messenger. When you feel tired, it's not weakness. When you crave rest, it's not laziness. When something inside shifts, it's saying, pay attention. Recovering yourself is noticing these cues before they turn into burnout, resentment, or disconnection. It happens through small, ordinary, intentional moments. Recovering yourself is not a retreat in Bali. It's not a reinvention. It doesn't require a crisis, though sometimes a crisis is what cracks the door open. For me, it looked like taking the time to stand on my balcony with a cup of tea in one hand and a spray bottle in the other, watering my plants. That's it. Just that. Giving myself the space, time, and freedom to notice the light on the leaves, watching them soften and lift when tended to, almost visibly grateful. Realizing in that quiet moment that life doesn't need force. It needs care, consistency, and presence. It looked like journaling, with questions that slowed me down rather than sped me up. What I now call the Recover You questions, prompts I return to again and again. Some mornings a question feels simple. Other mornings it stops me in my tracks. They help me notice tension, avoidance, stuck places, and where I feel alive as well. I write by hand in my journal without rushing. Over time, I've learned the answers don't just stay on the page. They show up in how I move through my day, how I make decisions, how gently I treat myself. I found that clarity doesn't come from doing more. It comes from listening to yourself better. Another huge life lesson came from creativity and personal projects. Creativity has been one of my greatest teachers in letting go of control. Sometimes it's crafting, scrapbooking. Sometimes it's baking sourdough and experimenting with food, or trying a new cuisine just to feel alive. These moments don't exist to be productive. They exist to remind me that joy is allowed. They bring me back to curiosity instead of control. None of these shifts look dramatic from the outside, but inside they change everything. They rebuild trust in myself, in my body, and in my life. The questions I mentioned, the Recover You questions, are part of a companion guide I've created. It helps you sit with your answers, notice patterns, and move forward gently. If you'd like the list, I'm happy to share it. It's free, just send me a message. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about learning to listen and respond with kindness and clarity. You don't need to control everything. You are already on your way back to yourself. I'd love to leave you with something gentle to carry into the week ahead. Not a task, but an invitation. Firstly, I'd like you to notice one moment each day where you try to control or force something. It might be a conversation, a plan, a feeling. I would like you to pause, take a breath, and ask yourself honestly, do I need to manage this, or can I allow it to just happen? Secondly, journal your observations. Not to fix anything, but simply to see. Just witness for yourself without judgment. And if you catch yourself softening, if you manage to choose allowing over forcing even once, celebrate it. That's the work. Thank you for listening till now. We're at the end of episode 1, and I hope I have given you something to ponder on for the next week till we meet again. In our next episode, we'll explore unlearning who you had to become and how to start listening to the wisdom that you carry within you. Thank you for being here, and see you next week.